It used to look like. Look how the old cobbled street. Not got any of the old buildings, but imagine a lot of the old streets were like that, but dating back to the Middle Ages, really. Winding old streets. And we're going down there to the which you all fantastically given money to.
No, I didn't do it right.
I think she went straight to Birmingham.
Oh, down in this yard. The shop's open, isn't it? All right. Are you all there? Any stragglers? All right, you're all there. This is the home of Freedom Bookshop and of the newspaper Freedom, which was originally founded in 1886 by Peter Cook in Russian Anarchist and also by Charlotte Wilson, who's an English anarchist, and it's been going on and off since then. Freedom moved here in 1969. Yes, and it was previously over in West London, and actually it's down this obscure little alley. When I went to visit it in West London, it was down another obscure little alley, so it doesn't help with the trade all that much, but there you go. And obviously this was a scene of a recent arson attack. They pulled the shutter out there, which was unfortunately not locked at the time, smashed the window and pulled some accelerant in and set fire to it. Fortunately they didn't do too much damage, and there was a wonderful response from all sorts of different people. A lot of people who hadn't even been involved with Freedom before. I read about it on social media and they came to help, and it was a very inspiring event. Freedom also used to own these buildings here on this side. It was where the printing works were. They rented the printing works there. And so it's been here since 1960. Question. If you want to have a little break, you can go up to the second floor and have a look at the books there if you're so bizarre. Do you want to do that, or do you want to carry on with the walk? Would somebody like to go and look at the books? Alright, go through the back door. I'll be out here. I'll come up with you. I go up to the second floor.
Get out your wallets before you come in.
Bye. Here we go. A bit hit and miss, some of it, if you ask me. Rabelais. Who else?
Emma Goldman.
Yes. John Kay. Paisley. Anyway, one of those characters here is Rudolf Rocker. And he's very important for the history of radicalism in the East End. Now, he wasn't Jewish. He was a great big burly, sort of striking-looking, pure-blooded German with blondish hair and blue eyes. And the German anarchist movement itself was there was quite a strong anarchist movement in Germany, and it was persecuted under the Kaiser, just as people in Russia were persecuted under the Tsar. And a lot of there were these anti-socialist laws that they pushed through. So a lot of Germans actually came, to the land of exile, which in those days was Britain. You wouldn't have thought it these days, really, the way they're tightening up on immigration. But a lot of German anarchists lived in Fitzrovia. Do you know where Fitzrovia is? Around Fitzroy Square, to the south of Great Portland Street, all around there. And I've read accounts about people who say we walked through the area and all we could hear was German. There were anarchist clubs up there as well. There was the Autonomy Club up there, the original Autonomy Club, and there were lots of German anarchists up there, as well as some French anarchists as well. They had Louise Michel, who was the great heroine of the Paris Commune, great anarchist. She set up, when she was in exile, she set up a free school in Fitzroy Square. Anyway, he came to Britain, and he'd had some sort of contact with the Jewish Yiddish-speaking movement in Paris, and he sought out the Yiddish-speaking movement in the East End, and he first met the anarchist movement up at the Sugarloaf, which I mentioned at the start of this speech, and he started getting on really well with these people, and he started speaking at their meetings as well, and he became a sort of mentor to a lot of people because he had a vast knowledge of all sorts of things, not just politics, but culture, history, art, you name it. He was able to lecture on a lot of things, and he was able to spread his ideas through the lectures and the meetings he gave. And he became involved with this paper, which I mentioned earlier, Der Arbeiterfreund, the workers' friend. Now, I also talked about Aaron Lieberman. Now, one of Lieberman, the guy who shot himself after being spurned. Now, one of Lieberman's friends was a bloke called Morris Winchesky, and he set up his own little paper after Lieberman died called Der Polnische Jidl, which means the little Polish Jew, and which then changed its name to the Arbeiterfreund in 1885. And he wrote about conditions in Whitechapel, the awful conditions. And that was the year that Rocker arrived in Britain, and then he later took over its editorship. Okay, and he transformed it from being a very sort of rather boring paper with very high-flown language into something that was couched in ordinary language that everybody could understand, and it had a big circulation as well. He also brought out a magazine alongside that, which was a sort of cultural, artistic, historical, philosophical review called Germinal, Z-H, Germinal, named after Germinal, which is one of the French revolutionary calendar, Germinal, which means the time of spring, sowing, as it were. There's a famous book by the French novelist Émile Zola called Germinal, which is about a miners' strike in northern France. It is excellent. Now, as we're talking all the time about how people are trying to educate themselves. Just around the corner, I'm going to speak about it here. I'll just point at you, which is very noisy out on that street. It was the Whitechapel Library, which is no longer the Whitechapel Library. It's part of the Whitechapel Art Gallery. And many very poor Jewish people, they studied there. They just read books there, and they bettered themselves. One of them was Rupert Gertler, who was probably one of the only working class members of the Bloomsbury group. Everybody know about the Bloomsbury group? It was a sort of artistic group, rather nauseating, elitist group really, in a lot of ways. Virginia Woolf, her husband Leonard, all that crowd. And he was a painter. You should have a look at his paintings. They're I like them. He's quite good. And he was an anarchist as well, and he was so depressed. He was so depressed by the collapse of the Spanish Republic in 1939 that he killed himself. Yeah, and others who others who studied there and who educated themselves there was Celie Brodesky, a famous mathematician, Jacob Bronowski, the famous humanist, Isaac Rosenberg, who was a World War I poet, and Israel Zangwill, who was a famous Zionist novelist. And so there you have it. Okay, so we'll have a look at the plaque, which only mentions one of the people rather than all that lot who I talked about. And then we'll go on to Alto Valley Park, and then we'll go on to the scene of the first anarchist club. Yes, there are two very famous anarchist clubs in